Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking around. We're going to have a 30-minute-ish talk back. If you are further back, come up closer so we can see your lovely faces. My name is Mike Yimhenna. I'm the executive director of an organization called Afikra. And this is essentially a live recording of our Quartertones series, which is a series that explores what music of the Arab world used to, does, and might sound like. And we are very excited to be able to collaborate with Habibi Fest. And this is the first of a kind, so I'm really excited about this. So, maybe let's open up to the sort of broader panel. Why Habibi Fest? Meera, Yacine, let's start with that. Why the name Habibi Fest? And why did this thing have to exist?
I'll come to why the name after. Why did it have to exist? It came about here. I was attending a festival that happens in March, I think. It's a flamenco festival. And I was attending it with one of our mutual friends, Tarek Yemeni. And we went to have dinner after. And we chatted and we talked about the world, the state of the world, and blah, blah. And why there was no festival representing our people in New York and in the States. And we couldn't think of anything that was a true picture of the Arab world. And its changes. It's a world in transition. It's a world that's very diverse, and we had the idea of a festival for that. And then that was the year I was in residency here, and then the name.
Yeah, tell us about the name.
Habibi, like beloved. I think that kind of encompasses the spirit that we're aiming for here. It's hard to define the borders of what this festival is and who it includes, but it's Habibi as an ethos. It's the vibe we wanted to create of making strangers into friends and bringing together people that we love. So there's not too much to it besides that this is a space for family. This is a space to make friends, and I think the name encompasses that.
Yeah, it is. It's sufficiently playful, which is exactly what we're looking for.
Officially playful, yes.
Maybe we can talk about this residency from the Joe's Pub perspective. For those of us who don't know about it, what is the purpose of the residency, and do all of them result in festivals?
The residency that Yacine is talking about is the Joe's Pub Working Group, which is a cohort of 5 artists that really spend a year working together. And it's an open proposal, and the only criteria to apply is that you've been involved in some Joe's Pub performance. So we've had costume designers, we've had performers, we've had visual artists that have been involved, and there's really actually no, I'm going to use a dirty word in the arts, there's no product involved in sort of the success of the residency. The residency is really about community building, that 5 artists that may or may not know each other from different disciplines can create a cohort and learn from each other and share skills and resources. And so not all of them are meant to turn into something like this, but this was just sort of a beautiful idea, and I feel like the Joe's Pub Working Group year that Yacine spent was really the fertile earth in which this festival grew. This is above and beyond and outside of that Joe's Pub Working Group. This is now its own sort of entity and blossomed into a commission. And this is a new sort of uncharted territory to commission curating and producing a festival. This is not something we've done before. So it feels like an important sort of step outside of what our well-tread territory of work that we're commissioning that tends to lean more into the theatrical realm, which is obviously we're in the public theater, which is very sort of fertile earth here. I'm using similar metaphors, but this felt like it really spoke to the moment and addressed a need within the city, and hopefully working to fill a much deserved sort of voice within the arts landscape here.
Okay, perfect. So before we get to give you a little background about the series, we dive into 3 different interludes. So I'm going to be asking about 3 different songs that you guys played. But before I do, Kinan, if you can just talk a little bit about when and how you met Yacine and the nature of this collaboration. You guys can both talk about it, but just to hear your voice a little bit.
Absolutely. You know, it's one of these things where things just happen because you meet somebody. I know Tariq Yemeni, who Yacine mentioned.
Also a friend of
somebody,
the program.
somebody I knew from Lebanon and from Syria many years back. I met him in New York. And then it's one of these things where Tariq calls me, come, I'm cooking dinner, and Yacine is coming. And sometimes, you know, like, things will happen. I think we both left that dinner trusting that something will happen eventually. But I would like actually to add 2 comments on what you guys spoke earlier. You know, about the Habibi Festival, what territory does it cover? I think it covers the world where people use the word Habibi more than 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking to the neighbor you hate, your wife, or like the neighbor next door.
Yeah,
you know, like
Habibi can mean
Habibi
I
for
hate
anything.
you.
Yeah. So the moment people respond to an invitation, do you want to play at my Habibi Festival? By yes, because they know exactly what the context means. I think these are the people. And I do think also in terms of representation, seeing the wonderful lineup of this festival, for me as an audience member too, I don't see it as a representation of the Arab world or where Arabic is spoken predominantly. I think it's a little window. I always like to be clear. This is a little window of what that part of the world is producing. I'm sorry, I'm using the word producing today. You know, this is music that at least what I heard today on stage with the Yacine's group, and also Hag's set. It's music that is inspired by traditions without being limited by it. And I like that concept. And I think Joe's Pub is a wonderful place for such experimentation. Sorry, long answer.
No, that's exactly right. So let's actually start talking about. So I picked three interludes, and let's talk about War Chant to start with.
Give it up for Miguel Malandro. So we want to split the room in half for a second and have you sing a little bit with us. I have a feeling just looking at the audience that we have some vocalists. Who here is a singer? Everybody should be raising their hands because we all have voices. So the first part is going to be, you can decide which part you like better and sing that one, okay? So, okay, right here is going to be the divider. Your part is going to be something that I make up in 5 seconds. Shine on the world, shine on the world, shine on the world. Can y'all sing that? Sing it with me. Shine on the world, shine on the world, shine on the world. Is that, do we like that? It's good enough. Okay, keep singing. Shine on the world, shine on the world, shine on the world. Yeah, but you gotta sing louder because you don't have a microphone tonight. So go ahead, let me hear you. Okay, keep singing. Shine on the world, shine on. Sing it like you mean it. On the world. Here's your part. Sit on down and give a listen. Shine on the world, shine on the world, shine on. They're gonna play louder in a second, so you gotta sing loud. Sit on down and give a listen. Shine on the world, shine on the world, shine on. Let me hear you. Yeah. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was beautiful. Oh, you can keep singing if you want. That's beautiful. Now we're going to sing it with you. Sit on down and give a listen. Shine on the world, shine on the world, shine. Sit on down and give a listen. Shine on the world, shine on the world, shine on the world. Here we go. Sit on down and give a listen. I'm a testify.
That song does not sound like a war chant to me, right? When I think of war chants, I think of like, do, 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 right? This sounded like Curtis Mayfield. And so let's talk a little bit about the name, how you compose these things. It's driven by this like syncopated guitar and bass line that are really driving the first section. Walk me through the composition process, as well as like the naming process.
Sure. I'll start with the naming process.
And it's the name of the album, right?
It's the name of the album, and it's been in the works since 2018. And some of you might have forgotten, but we just had Trump for president for 4 years, and that was our war chant against the administration, basically. To make it short, it's one of these moments where I think with Sarah, we had the skeleton of a song, an instrumental skeleton, and I'm like, hey, Sarah, what do you want to talk about? It's like, let me think. And it was immediately, we imagined him tied up to a chair and us just spitting our rage to him. So that's what it is.
It's like it's joyful rage, though. It's
yeah, the diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
And it's I think the whole thing with the joy, like a lot of our songs raise topics, and we're a bit kind of frontal about it. But it's always, I think, the whole idea of the band is it's always a celebration. We don't have to be, we don't have to say sad things in a sad way. We can uplift them, we can transform them, sublime them, and I think it's a good representation of what we're trying to do on stage. We're doing it in joy, yeah.
Yeah, the word joy is in the name of the
name
of the group.
It's self-descriptive.
Yeah, but walk me through the composition process a little bit. It's like there's, if I remember correctly, there are these three very distinct sections of the song. Super syncopated. There's that like ballady halftime section in the middle. Like, how does that composition process come together?
It starts. It usually starts with. I like to start composing with a drum groove, and this one was inspired by a drum groove by Tony Allen, and from that. Mikael, the guitar player, and the bass player from back then, Jonathan, came over to my place. We jammed. They each came up with that part, that syncopated section. Yeah. And what else came in? The melody. Then I wrote the melody. What else happened? Brought it to rehearsal, and then Jesse came up with that bridge. It's a group. I think that was written in 2018, and that was the first time that we had a real group composition process where I brought a little something, and then it became a lot bigger, and everybody was feeling comfortable enough to bring their own thing. Because before that, the band was very much me bringing like finished compositions. So this is this is the band getting together for the first time.
Very cool. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about Somber Joy.
She deepens the tide, stretches and filling my soul way beyond its ability. She sets me free, falling on limbos of light, lost there if I can find the missing piece of my heart. She captures my will until ecstasy. Together we drown in the abyss of lethargy. She sets me free, falling on limbos of light, lost there if I can't find the missing piece of my heart. And she chains me into a bliss of forgiveness, holding me down in some dark will. I resist, holding me down the emptiness She wasn't a choice, always been my
What is the time signature of Somber Joy? Is this in 6/4? What? How? Walk me through.
It's a 6/8. It's a Shaabi rhythm,
Yeah.
and
Tell us about this rhythm pattern. It's a Moroccan.
it's a Moroccan
Yeah,
rhythm.
talk about this.
Well, it's just everything that's accentuated is the second triplet, and so you never feel like you never find your downbeat until the bridge, and the bridge is like 4 on the floor.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. It's like to have this shifting sands during the verse, and then 4 on the floor during the chorus.
Meera, go ahead.
Well, since we're on the topic, I really would love to hear a little bit about how you're approaching creating new music for the Shaabi artists we have on Friday.
Yeah.
Not to take it from you.
No,
but
no, no,
like,
please.
Since you're talking about your composition process, I'm like really curious because
Yeah.
I think one of the key parts of the festival is also to be sharing original music and sharing commissions and doing world premieres. And on Thursday and Friday, Yacine's leading a band that's going to collaborate with these artists for the first time. And I'd love to hear about your process for that.
It's kind of the same process as that. Earthra sent me a bank of drum sounds that she likes to dance to, and there was like 10 or 15 different loops, and she told me to just pick 2 or 3 and to create something. And so that's what I did. And she sent me a lot of music from Algeria, a lot of Rai, and based on these rhythms, I put together like a 10-minute song where we go through different rhythms that she feels comfortable dancing on. And so hopefully it will be a jam.
So I want to go back to this Shaabi rhythm. For those of us who don't know anything about it, what is the natural form or the natural sort of song form that's actually supposed to be associated with? Is there a specific, very strict form that it's supposed to work with, or a strict celebration, or what is sort of the natural habitat of that rhythm?
There would be, I think there's many forms, but one of the original form would be the band that Ezra dances with, Bnat Hurayet, and it's percussions and one vocalist.
Okay.
And they play this groove, and it's just shouts, shout choruses and drums, and then the dancer. So it's very, the form is very, very simple, very straightforward, vocals and drums.
Yeah. Okay, so Kinan, I have a question for you. During the performance, the last 2 tracks that you guys were playing together, there are moments that you had a smile sort of wrapped around your face, specifically on the grooves. There were these, I think the last track you guys were deciding who was going to solo first or who was going to solo second, and you had this huge grin on your face during the groove, sort of being like, I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to do here. But it wasn't
supposed to be that.
It was infectious. It was so nice to look at, and your solo was incredible. How different are the grooves in AJOYO to the grooves that sort of you are used to playing in your original work?
Let me explain the grin first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think it's important. You know, there's something I always remind myself, and I feel incredibly lucky to be having that feeling. Every time I'm on stage, I try to always remind myself, why am I here? What am I doing? And the real reason is because it gives me immense pleasure, right? So the grin is something that I cannot really, like, even if I'm freaking out, like I don't know where I'm in the page, or if I know exactly what's going on, it still gives me tremendous pleasure to be able to share something from my heart, join with like a bunch of hearts on stage, to all of you guys in the audience. It's really a tremendous privilege that I always remind myself of. So that explains the grin. I'm always grinning, and I'm always like happy on stage. And how different the music, you know, I don't think there are real differences in music making in the deepest sense. I think there are different musical vocabularies that people use as devices, and the more, I think all of us do that naturally in our lives. We spread horizontally, we explore different things. The moment we like something a lot, we start to dig vertically to really know where it comes from, how it can be used properly, and everything. So from a principal perspective, there's no difference. You know, whether the music is groove-based or harmony-based or polyphonic-based or just improvised, pure improvised music, there are no limitations because they are all coming from the same perspective. You have an idea in your head, you have a tool in your hand, and you have the skills to make that connection between the idea and how you use the tool, right? So it's the same. The difference is, like, you know, like the 6/8 in this beat, for example, is something that I'm not used to. But also, my background, I'm not a jazz man, nor I will never say that I'm an expert on Arabic music or Syrian music. At the end of the day, I'm actually classically trained. I know more about Mozart and Bach and Brahms. Yeah. But my connection to these, the first time when Yacine sent me the tracks, and I listened actually before looking at the score, I was like, okay, that was a grin of a different kind. And I'm like, okay, where is one? You know?
Exactly. Where is
but
one?
then I decided to like go the harder way.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not gonna look at the score until I try to see it. You know, to try to learn it the way people learn it without music.
It's almost like you danced your solo.
I fake my way through it.
Yeah.
I describe people. So if the solo was bad, I can, you know. No. The thing is, you have to feel it. You know, groove is something that is not taught at least in classical music conservatories. It's something you feel, but it's something that you can train yourself to feel. Yeah. Especially in grooves that are not common to your musical vocabulary. And you know, if you go to countries like India, giving India as an example, the complexity of rhythms and grooves. I mean, for somebody who's never been trained in odd meters, it will be like coming from outer space. If you spend really time with it, it becomes like a 5 groove in 5 or 17 or 23 will become just a normal vocabulary for you.
Speaking of odd grooves, okay, I want to talk about November 22nd for a second. I guess we can start with the rhythm to begin with. Would you describe the rhythm, the meter of November 22nd, as being a traditional meter?
No, not at all. Actually, neither that nor wedding. None of them is traditional.
Yeah.
2116 is the meter of November 22nd.
Yeah, it drove me crazy.
Actually, there's a connection between these two pieces. I wrote these pieces. They are older pieces of mine, 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with numbers. And I think that was when I was introduced to how Indian percussion playing happens. So I was trying to superimpose different numbers together. So 2116 actually is a groove of 3 sevens back to back, right? And the piece Wedding, which was the first part is in 4/4, which is 16/16.
Yeah.
And I decided to play with that groove a little bit, which came from a traditional groove, and I took 1/8 out. So it became 15/8. So it has this familiarity, but there's something that is not sitting exactly. But what was amazing about the number 15, I'm going to nerd out a little bit. 15 is a wonderful combination of numbers. 15 is 3 5s, is 5 3s. You can subdivide it in different ways, but also it's 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1.
Yeah.
So in writing the piece, both in November and in Wedding, I tried to exhaust all the metric modulations. It was a brain game for me.
Super cool. Okay, so I want to talk about the story that you told about November. So you wrote that outside of DC, or the beginning, the initial sketches outside of DC on this Thanksgiving trip. But hearkening back to this old suite in Damascus by your house. What do you think the piece would have sounded like had you written it in Damascus? Had you started it?
It would be about New York. Mm-hmm. You know, I think once we always take home for granted. I mean, I think all of us feel that way. And I noticed, I tell you, I'm sorry if I'm speaking too long, but it's just the thought that I would like to explain a little bit. Home has always been for me Damascus, right? For all these years, I was always enjoying being the New Yorker in Damascus and the Damascene in New York.
Yeah.
Lately, actually, it happened after the infamous Trump travel ban, where I was stuck outside the country. And then I saw friends of mine, New Yorkers, who went to JFK to demonstrate, and suddenly I was like, oh, I am a New Yorker. These guys are trying to fight on my behalf or something.
Yeah, they're representing me.
And now I noticed that now I'm more interested in becoming the New Yorker in New York and the Damascene in Damascus. I think being the other, which is a nice state to be for part of your life, but I think being local is something that I totally admire. Anywhere I am, I try to be the local, or try to get in touch with whatever the local setting is. And maybe this, I don't know about you guys, but I think during the pandemic, many of us actually enjoyed being local, because the word shrunk to this 3 blocks radius, where we wanted to support the venue next door. We didn't have to travel to Berlin to do a show. Yeah. You can just go and play in a small cafe for 6 people. That became suddenly more meaningful.
Yeah.
So I don't think the piece would have, maybe it would be another piece.
Yeah.
But I was too close to it to admire that setting back then.
I just want to yes and you. talking to Haig, and I loved hearing you reflect back on Haig's work and working with Haig over the last year or so, talking about home. I've always loved this idea, and this is sort of a just sort of language thing that satisfies me, that this saying that home is where you're bound, and bound, of course, has multiple meanings. And when I was younger, I always felt like home is where you're bound, like where you're rooted, where you're stuck, where you're tied down, where you have responsibilities and commitments. And when I moved away from home, home became where I'm going, where I'm bound, where I'm headed to. And so home was never where I was, it was always the place that I had been, or where I was going to next. And so moving to New York, this small town in Massachusetts, that was home when I wasn't there. And when I went home, home was in New York, because that's where I wasn't. And I feel like you just spoke my heart when you said in the last year and a half, like home became this place where I was almost for the first time. Like I kind of settled into my neighborhood, to being here. Home where I grew up was the place where I grew up. That definitively does not feel like home anymore. This place where I am now feels like home. So I'm just so moved to hear you speak and play. And you and Haig, I feel like we're speaking and playing to each other tonight in a beautiful way. So I just am really moved by that. Thank you.
And go ahead, Meera. Yeah.
I also want to just echo what Alex says, but add that someone came up to me earlier and said that she felt like she was home just now at this concert. Shout out to Shadia from Morocco. And I think that's, it's so special to be doing the festival here at Joe's Pub, which was my home for 10 years when I would just linger in the sound booth or just come to shows. And I think lots of people feel that way about Joe's Pub. And the fact that we were also able to open the festival with mostly local artists, I think that's really special. I mean, you might not have been able to do that in any city. New York is the place where you can have the most amazing artists on any corner. And I really appreciate that people can come here and come to this festival and feel like they're home. Because for me, it's always been a sound or a smell. It's very like a physical sensation to understand what home is. And, I'm Indian and I'm absorbed into this Habibi world. And part of it's because this is what sounds like home to me. And I think that home can also just be a sound.
Yeah. It's interesting, Meera, when you introduced AJOYO, you said this is like you said something like this is a uniquely New York band, something along those lines. And I think that's true. And
New York is a genre of music.
Yeah, and so it's almost like this tonight was a sort of almost like a meditation on what New York could sound like, as much as it was a meditation on what music of the Arab world could sound like, or will sound like, or does sound like, or did sound like. So I'm going to ask both of you one of our quick Q&As that we usually ask on as part of Quartertones, which is if you could collaborate with any artist. Let's say we'll choose one living and one passed away.
I want to answer these too.
Yeah, sure. We'll do all four of you. If you could collaborate with any artist who you haven't collaborated with yet, one who's living, one who's passed away, who would they be? Let's start here and then we'll go down the list.
It's actually lots of pressure to limit them to two. Yeah. Because, if you have the option between, I don't know, like Bach and Stravinsky and Shikriya, I don't know who to choose. But
Stravinsky would be offended, okay?
Actually, there is one person that I think of him today because he passed away today.
Yeah.
Sabah Fakhri, who's a legend, who was and continues to be a legend when it comes to singing in Arabic. Let me put it this way. That's somebody, I would be too intimidated to collaborate with.
Speaking of dancing on stage.
Right. But I wish that I managed to sit at a close proximity and listen to him live. It's not about collaborating sometimes. Yeah. It's just I want to sit and listen, And living people, I'm collaborating with the people I'm dreaming of collaborating with, so it's already done.
Great answer. You can't steal that answer. He took that answer from you.
All right. I'm gonna go with Keith Jarrett.
Yeah.
Just because of the universality of his music and how deep it moves me. And I can't think of anybody dead.
Okay. If you could have a dream guest on Habibi Fest.
Well, this is kind of the same answer. And also, shout out to artists of non-musical forms. I see you. So, one of my dream guests who's alive, which helps, is the ensemble that Ezra Warda plays with. She's going to be here on Friday. And she has this ensemble of these badass older women from Morocco named Banat al-Hawariat. And they are my dream ensemble to work with. And inshallah, they'll come to the festival at some point.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to collaborate with Izzy Miyake, the Japanese fashion designer.
Yeah.
So if Izzy Miyake made clothes for all these women to play on this stage, and then Kusama did a guest appearance and also made clothes for them, then I'd be happy.
Yeah, you have to put it into the universe.
I don't want to touch this microphone right now. I don't even know where to begin answering this question. I feel like anything I say is going to be corny and so true. I mean, my job is to collaborate with artists that I love. So look at this wall. I was thinking how this is me avoiding a question, by the way. I was thinking back to something we were talking about earlier about like where Habibi Fest came from. Like, we don't put these people on the wall because, like, look at us, we're fancy. Like, these are your peers. These are our peers. Like, this is what we're here to do, is to host Yusundur and Habibi Fest 2021 and to have, Alicia Keys and Amy Winehouse and Laurie Anderson and, my dream, and I'm just going to put it out there because we're talking to her about, like, having Angelique Kidjo in residency next year. So these are, like, dreams that are in my heart. But, like, this is my job, is that I get blessed to kind of, like, respond to people. And I was joking with Yacine that, like, say yes and stay out of the way. That's my job. So that was me avoiding a question.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was an honor to watch you guys make beautiful music on stage. Thank you to all of you who stuck around. There's an amazing show tomorrow. I hope you guys come. And Meera, Yacine, everybody, thanks so much. And if any final things you want to say, announcements, things?
Well, I just want to shout out to you, Mikey. I've been a fan of Afikra for a few years now. And pre-COVID, and then you had all these international gatherings where you just hang out in a cool space and you let people nerd out about whatever it is they love about Arab culture. I remember I went to a conversation that was about food for the first half and then architecture in this tiny Algerian town for the second half. And it was the best hang ever. So I want to plug Afikra and their international team of nerds who just talk about the coolest stuff. And yes. I'm just so grateful that you are in town from Lebanon to be here with us. And thank you for being here.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks, man. Okay, everybody. Enjoy your evening. You can go to habibifest.com, africada.com, and all the other handles that are self-explanatory. Okay, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Al.